In part 7 of this series, we began our consideration of the story of the Tower of Babel as recorded in Genesis chapter 11. We learned that the context of this story reveals more than what first meets the eye. Where tradition sees the origin of all languages, beneath this lies the element of the inordinate love of the self that desires to ascend above God and others and make a name for itself. This is a perfect description of the carnal mind, for we are told in Romans 8:7 and 8 that the mind set on the flesh is death and is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. Though most see the story of the Tower of Babel as the origin of Babylon, it actually originates in the Genesis parable and the story of Adam, Eve, the serpent, and the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge is symbolic of the old covenant from which came God's law. Paul calls this covenant the ministry of death and condemnation, which explains why Adam and Eve died when they took of its fruit. Eating fruit denotes deeds or action. So first, the knowledge of the law, followed by our attempts to present ourselves as superior to others because of this knowledge. This correlates with the statement, "Let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." A city denotes a collective. A tower denotes a collective's desire to ascend above others. The top in the heavens denotes a collective's desire to ascend above even our Creator. Let us make a name for ourselves typifies the identity we associate with in conjunction with those who are like-minded. As we learned in this series, the tree of knowledge, typifying the law, is the same as the tree of life. They are given separately to show our transition from natural to spiritual, from the knowledge of the law to its spiritual essence, which is love or charity. Without love, the law of God is bondage. In Galatians, we have two women denoting the two covenants. For this reason, it should not surprise us when we enter the book of Revelation and find two very important women that need to be understood. The first one is found in Revelation, chapter 12. "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth." Note first that John saw a great sign, not on earth, but in heaven. What does he see? A woman clothed with the sun, with a greater light that rules the day, typifying the glory of the light of the new covenant promise of God. For this reason, the moon is under her feet, since the glory of the new covenant far transcends that of the old. As Paul states in Galatians 4:26, this woman or covenant corresponds to Jerusalem above. And the crown of 12 stars? 12 denotes God's divine government, clearly exemplified by Christ and his 12 apostles. The fact that she is pregnant refers to the children of promise that are birthed by the new covenant promise of God. And birth pains? This leads to the following. "And Jesus answered them, 'See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Following the birth of a male child who is caught up to God in his throne, we are told that the woman fled into the wilderness. With this in mind, let's go to the following. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, 'Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot, who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the Spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Here, an angel is about to show John the judgment of the great harlot, which verse 5 identifies as Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. This is our second prominent woman in Revelation. Where does the Spirit carry John? Into the wilderness, the same place the woman clothed with the sun flees to. Does simple logic indicate that Babylon was once the woman clothed with the sun? With this in mind, consider the following. Another angel, a second followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. Let me speak plainly. The woman clothed with the sun represents the new covenant promise, while Babylon represents the old covenant law. Here's confirmation. You are severed from Christ, you who would be justified by the law. You have fallen away from grace. For through the Spirit, by faith, we ourselves eagerly wait for the hope of righteousness. For in Christ Jesus, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision counts for anything, but only faith working through love. You were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion is not from him who calls you. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. In many of my studies, I mention the falling away of the church that Paul speaks about in 2 Thessalonians 2:3, verified by the Lord's statement to the very first church in Ephesus. Our passages in Galatians 5 correspond, describing what is meant by fallen. Note what Paul says. You were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This corresponds to the following in the message to Ephesus. I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and are not, and have found them liars. Friend, why would anyone enter into the church and claim to be an apostle when they are not one? Would it not be due to pride and a desire for power and reputation and to rise over others? Now, bring this to the idea of the law. If love is the fulfillment of the law, then the law is certainly necessary to our spiritual journey. However, it's not the law or knowledge of good and evil that's the problem. Rather, it's the fact that we allow our knowledge to puff us up. We weaponize our knowledge against others. Note what Jesus follows with to Ephesus. And you have persevered and have patience and have labored for my name's sake and have not become weary. Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love. Remember therefore from where you have fallen. Remember therefore from where you have fallen. You did run well. You were obeying the truth. But now you have fallen. Fallen from what? Grace, which flows from love. At this point, I will close, but be sure to join me for the next study. Thank you for being a part of Grain of Wheat Publishing.